Okay, good evening. Can I have nominations for election of chair? Is there a seconder? Councillor Stevens, you've been elected chair.
Angela, can the Labour Party nominate anybody, or?
Fortunately, not on this occasion. According to the protocol, the convention protocol in the Constitution, chairs of any scrutiny committees and panels, and including task and finish groups, needs to go to the major opposition group first. Only if they decline that, then Labour can put forward a nominee.
Welcome. Welcome everybody to tonight's meeting of the Scrutiny Nighttime Economy Task and Finish Group. It is intended to live stream the meeting tonight, and if successful, a recording of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Members and officers, please remember to switch microphones on. Don't do what I often do and forget when speaking, and speak directly into the microphone and switch off after speaking. Reporting officers using Teams, please switch cameras on when addressing the committee and switch off again after speaking. Please use the hands up icon to indicate questions or comments. The chair will then invite you to speak. In the event of any exempt reports on the agenda, the live stream will cease prior to the meeting, moving into private, and there might be a short delay. Please remember to switch off mobile phones or place them on silence. So, we're here today to... Oh yeah, sorry. Can I take any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Ambia. And Councillor Latif is also rendered his apologies, and he's been substituted by Councillor Ahmed.
And Councillor Adris, I think, is absent, but is substituted by Councillor Zahur. Okay.
Aren't you Councillor Ahmed?
Zahur Ahmed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what you said.
So do I go through this?
Yeah, just ask us if there's any disclosures.
It's time if anybody has any disclosures of interest, could you please make them known now?
It's loud. If, say, the ward falls, the town centre falls under a ward, would they need to declare an interest for that for the councillors, or can they just act as normal members?
No. They should be okay with that because it's a task and finish group. It might be a personal interest, but they should be able to still fully take part in the review.
Okay. This task and the recommendation from the Scrutiny Task and Finish Group came from the Scrutiny Board, and the recommendations at that time were for this Task and Finish Group recommended to agree the scope for the review, which is attached in that particular report. Delegate Democracy and Scrutiny Officer to make any necessary amendments to the scope in consultation with the Chair, and that the Democracy and Scrutiny Officer and Chair prepare a press release for the review to generate public interest and participation in the review. And lastly, and probably very importantly, agree the frequency of meetings for evidence to be received.
Chair, if you'd like Corey to take you through the scope.
Yes, please. It would be very useful, Corey, if you could go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So for those that don't know me, I'm Corey Albone and I am the Interim Head of Culture and Creativity at the Council. So my team is responsible for a number of things, including arts and culture, heritage and place activation in the town centre. And nighttime economy forms an important part of that. So I'm just going to run through a few of the key details in the scope, which hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at already. And then we'll just be asking really for comments from everybody on whether people are happy with the scope or would like to amend it in any way. So just a bit of background, which, Chair, you've touched on already, that this group has been formed to look at the nighttime economy in Luton. The recommendations of this group will feed into a new nighttime economy plan, which will be taking shape over the next few months, and a wider visitor economy strategy, which relies significantly on the development of the nighttime economy, among other things. Just to give a little bit of context, nighttime economy was last reviewed by Scrutiny in 2011. This was a little bit of a different review, which focused more on tackling alcohol-related crime and disorder in Luton as part of the nighttime economy. Going forward, this group is much more about activating our nighttime economy on this occasion, and a range of factors have prompted this group being formed, consistent with the criteria of the Scrutiny Task and Finish groups. As people will know, a key priority of Luton 2040 is to build an inclusive economy. That's about delivering investment into the town, growing our businesses, and also making Luton an attractive place for people to live, work and study as well. Public have voiced opinions at various councillor surgeries about the town centre and nighttime economy, and that has impacted the need for this group to look at this issue. But also it's important to note that there's a number of opportunities that will provide a real catalyst for growth in the nighttime economy coming forward, including the growth of London Luton Airport and developments the Stage and Power Court, as well as our growing cultural offer in the town. So there are some real opportunities that this group can start to build into with the nighttime economy plans going forward. We've put forward in the scope a number of objectives for the group and factors for the group to focus on as part of the scope of this, and we'd welcome comments on whether these are the right objectives for the group to look at. These are starting to develop a vision for the nighttime economy that meets the needs of residents and attracts visitors to the town, nighttime economy place management and leadership, the diversity of the local offer, including opening hours, infrastructure, including premises and spaces in the nighttime economy, transport links and accessibility, public safety, and also marketing and changing the perceptions of the local offer in our nighttime economy. We've also put forward in the scoping document a suggestion of how evidence should be collected, and this impacts the number of meetings that the group will have and whether we look to do all of this evidence gathering formally in these meetings or whether some of that is done separately with a wider group of consultations with key partners, stakeholders and residents. So we've proposed a number of key staging posts for this group, including some evidence sessions following this initial scoping meeting. The first of these is looking to bring together evidence through a series of data, which my team would lead on collecting with our business intelligence colleagues. So we would look to bring an initial paper which brought the key data on our nighttime economy offer as it stands at the moment. The second session would be to bring together written submissions, and if we wanted to put forward a resident survey, we would look to bring this to that second evidence session to get the views of residents on our nighttime economy. We would then look at a number of potential best practice visits. So this group could look to identify places that they want to visit or talk to understand where other nighttime economies are having some success. And then we've also suggested a number of stakeholder panel sessions that this group could lead on. So it may be that a couple of members chair those stakeholder panel sessions separately and then bring back the evidence to this group. Alternatively, we could invite people to this group to give evidence directly, but the challenge would be that would require a lot more time, I think, for the formal meetings. We're then proposing that we would bring together all of this evidence to this group later on, and that would be an opportunity then to start to draft a series of recommendations for a final report of this group. The scoping document does also contain initial thoughts on communications and PR, which the chair touched on as well initially in terms of a press release. So those are the key things in the scoping document. I'd like to open up really to any comments and thoughts on how we take this forward.
Thank you, Corey. Could we take questions or comments, please, on the objectives which have been raised by Corey, and also on the methodology going forward with the proposed meetings, to see whether that's sufficient or whether there should be more that's included. Questions, comments, please? Councillor Marshall.
Chair, thank you. Do we know where Luton's nighttime economy sits at the moment in terms of revenue that it generates an income for the town? And ideally where we would like to see that? Do you have any thoughts on that at all? Is this going to be sort of revenue driven or finance driven, or to increase the opportunities that we've got within the town for our residents?
So I think probably both. I think it's up to the group to think about the scope that they'd like to look at, but I think we'd certainly want to look at the economic side, but also civic pride and how we attract visitors into our town. So these are all suggested objectives for the group, if you're happy to look at all of those as a group. The suggestion would be that we bring together an initial paper at the first meeting of or the next meeting of this group, where we bring together all of the data that we've got on all of those things so far. Some of the things that the group might want to look at, we might not be able to get in terms of data, but this is a good opportunity if there's particular bits of data you'd like us to gather. We're starting to gather what we can already, but if there are any particular pieces of data that members would like to see, it'd be good to put those forward at this point, I think.
Abbas, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of comments from me. I think, I know in evidence session 1, I think it'd be good to define what we mean by nighttime economy. It could mean various things to various people. So I think a definition that this is what it is and what it means will be useful. I didn't see anything in there about promoting equality, diversity, inclusion, being family friendly. So I don't know whether that could be incorporated into there somewhere, because we want to be all of those things. And then I think, you're drafting some recommendations. Is there a step in there about maybe testing some of those recommendations with stakeholders or not? I wonder whether that could be considered, whether a small select group that we just bounce the recommendations off before we actually go and publish them.
Yeah, so I think we could certainly look to add that in as another session, perhaps with stakeholders. Perhaps towards the end, we could add another session to review recommendations once they've been put forward by the group to test those. That would be a good suggestion, I think, if that's something members would like to see. Sorry, remind me of the first point. So I think that would be useful for the group to do at this point. In terms of the data that we're just starting to collect for that next meeting, we're looking at a range of businesses in the town to just get a sense of what the local offer is. That's restaurants, that's pubs, clubs, bars, that's entertainment, leisure. Probably most of the things that people would typically think, but it might be useful for everybody to kind of look at that, think about their definition at this point and whether there's anything that might be missing from a traditional nighttime economy that we'd like to look at.
Councillor Abbas, were you moving that we have another meeting then to do with the stakeholders, which was just, you're moving that? Is everybody happy to go with this extra meeting? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Not officially part of the meeting, but just to share my thoughts on some of it. I know Corey mentioned you might just want to have a couple of members do some of those stakeholder meetings. I think you should have that as like a full meeting session, because one of the key things you want for this is to get engagement and drive engagement and get people interested in it. And by having them come in, have all members talk and engage, it will make those stakeholders feel like they'll be taken seriously and that they want to be heard from. So I would say try and keep those as big as possible, make them a main part of the meeting, because they are an important factor in your report. Thank you.
Stakeholders and what businesses. I assume we're going to reach out beyond the ones that actively just take part. Like, so you've got businesses that take part in Luton Bid. There's lots of great businesses that don't for various reasons. And I think they're the sort of people we need to reach out to.
If it would be helpful to the group, we can draw up a list of stakeholders to engage with for the next meeting, and then we can review that at the next meeting. And if there are others that we'd like to add to that, members can input.
Thank you, Chair. Can we also look at, there's a lot of residents in town centre as well, so we need their views on this as well, please. So if you can add somewhere that we get the residents' views, what they see, how it will affect them, how it will benefit them, those questions.
So there's a couple of ways we could look to bring residents' views in. One, we could put together a survey which we can review the questions of with members of this group to make sure that we're asking the right questions. Also, we could do some of those focus group sessions. I think, as Councillor Taylor said, with stakeholders, it may be more beneficial to bring them into the formal meeting. With residents, if we want to capture a lot, that may be where it's more useful to kind of go outside of the formal meeting itself and have some bigger focus groups that we bring the evidence back, if that's how members would prefer to do it. But as I say, there's a couple of options there that we could take forward. We could do both or one of those.
Hi, are members happy with Corey's proposal? Yes? Okay, thank you. Ask a question, Corey, please, from the chair, and that's to do with the co-opted members. We are able to co-opt. Do you have some recommendations of certain individuals or perhaps organisations that might be helpful in this regard? Certainly from the chair, maybe having something like the Students' Union, maybe the executive, a member of the executive of the Students' Union might be a useful input to, to take forward. But do you have views on other potential people?
Yeah, so we have included a few officers, firstly, on the as supporters to the group, just to provide advice, as not just myself, but a couple of other key officers. In terms of partners, there's a few that would potentially be really useful to co-opt, if that's what members would like to do. I think the bid were mentioned as one, Students' Union maybe one. We could put that together with the paper for the next meeting, perhaps on stakeholders, and we could look through then that list and see if there's some that we want to co-opt, and we can recommend a few that would be good, but members can then look at who they'd like to co-opt potentially from that list.
Sounds to me like a useful way forward. Again, are members happy with that? So that we have a list coming forward. Councillor Taylor again.
Yeah, just one that I thought of a national organisation that might be useful, the Nighttime Industries Association, and I know they're having a conference at some point in February, I think, as well, that I did send over to Debbie that you might take interest in. But I'm sure if you let them know this is happening, they might want to send someone down to help with evidence gathering, national trends, that kind of thing. So I'd recommend putting them forward.
Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. Will the Culture Trust be involved in terms of this co-opting? Because I'm sure they'll have a major stake in that. There's a lot that happens at the Hat Factory on a nightly basis, so I'd be keen to see their involvement. And then the other thing, in terms of the notes of the background, one of the reasons that this was brought back in 2011, in terms of a task and finish group, there was the concerns over the alcohol and the prevalence of alcohol. Will the police be involved in this at some stage, you think?
Yeah, so I think Culture Trust, the police, BID we've mentioned, the MAL, some of those key organisations I think definitely would be on the stakeholder list. I think all of those are among the sort of the higher tier stakeholders, I could put it that way. So they may all be ones that we'd potentially want to co-opt or just involve to a greater degree perhaps than others.
Are there any other questions, comments? Oh, Councillor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Not a question, a comment. I think it's partly answers, but also a suggestion to Corey. Is on Friday we did a walkabout night of action with the neighbourhood enforcement, rough sleep, and a lot of team from the council, as Councillor Taylor's aware, and police. So I think it was really good one, and I was there for 4 hours. We finished early because it was rain and we didn't notice many things. What I was suggesting is if we could have a feedback. I think they planned 4 until January. So if you could, in this group, if you could have a feedback from one of the representatives from that team, the Night of Action team, I think it's Operation Foresight. Yeah, so that would really help, I think, this task and finish group. And I could do it, I was there, but it would be good if an officer came and gave a feedback. Yeah, thank you.
Taylor again?
Yeah, just very briefly. So Fatima obviously went out on that last week. There'll be another one, I'm sure they're planning to do in January, and if members want to go along to that, just let Tony Ireland or Tony Stefano know, and I'm sure most members can go out, and then you can get a feel of what the nighttime economy is like on a Friday night. It can be variable, shall we say, but that'll give members an idea of, even just walking around at night, like you might have an idea of what the town centre looked like 10 years ago from when you went out before children, but to what it looks like now is very different. So it'll give you a real sense of, you know, what is happening in the town centre and what's going on, and what challenges could people face as well.
Any other comments? Any other questions? I would like to get some advice, perhaps, through for the board of Corrie for the particular sessions that you talked about in the work programme, and it's agreed scope. So obviously it needs to fit in with what's coming from yourself and other officers. How much time you need to go through. So could we get an idea of timings, or are you able to put together a programme of potential timings that we could put into the calendar?
Yes, Chair, I think that's something we'll take away with the democracy team to work out the exact dates. But I think to give an idea, I think we'll be looking at something early in the new year for that first evidence session. As I say, we've started to gather some of the evidence already, and happy to take any further requests in terms of data that would be useful for that first session. So we're looking at something early in the new year, and then I think we'd probably look to have those other evidence sessions every couple of months. So we'd probably be looking at meetings, I think, every 2 months, and that gives us time to do those other stages in between in terms of collecting, be it evidence from residents or from stakeholders to bring to those meetings. But we'll work out the exact scheduling with the democracy team, I think.
Thank you. Do you want something?
Just to say, yeah, we can work out some dates for meetings every 2 months, but are members happy with meetings starting at 6 o'clock?
Is everybody happy with 6 o'clock? Yeah. Do any members have any views,
I had a question.
To add on the public sorry. Oh, my apologies.
You will be. So my question is around the meetings and during Ramadan. So if there is going to be a meeting during Ramadan, the time is likely, will that be factored in? If you are looking at during a Ramadan period, you need to factor in the start time and the finish time for that. That's all I'm saying.
So that would be taken on board. Sorry, my question is, does any of the members have any views on the public involvement? Here we're talking about local media, press inquiries, press releases, local radios, council website. Twitter, Facebook. Do any members have any further views on how we can better get the information out to the public to get their involvement?
Thank you. I think, if I remember, when you did the budget, we hosted like a thing in the mall where there was a stand and officers and members were there asking people for their view. I think that was very successful with the budget consultation. If we did something like that, because surveys don't usually work for many of them, and we can't, I don't know how many will feed back those. So I think having something like that would be really helpful. I don't know, a few of us, members from this group, could be there on a Saturday or midday or somewhere, stand there with a stall and ask people for their views.
We take that on and take that on board.
Yeah, we could add some high visibility public consultation sessions in. That would be definitely possible. Happy to do that.
Any further input? Any further questions? Any further comments? Please, Councillor.
You talked about comms and PR. Is there a budget assigned to it, or?
We can assign a small amount of budget depending on the arse of the group. We have a budget that we use for marketing purposes anyway, which we can cover that with in terms of the town centre. I think it's more just a question of anything in terms of evidence gathering. If we're looking at any away days or trips to anywhere, that's where we might just need to identify some further budget, but we can take that away if there's any requests for learning from other places that would incur some budget.
I mean, Corey, I did a bit of research before this meeting, and there were a number of towns and cities that come across quite well in the research that's taken place. Obviously Liverpool, Leeds, Halifax, Brighton, and big cities like Bristol. So we've got some cities and towns already lined up that seem to be making a good success of their nighttime economy. So hopefully some of those, or one or two of those, might be used as part of that exercise.
Yeah, and we can put together a list of potential places to look at, but also accept any kind of recommendations from members of the group around places they'd like to look at in more detail. I know that Councillor Taylor had previously suggested Wolverhampton were doing something similar in terms of a task and finish group previously, and probably just keen to kind of learn how far they've got on their journey a little bit more, to see if there's lots we can learn from them beyond the process side of it.
Councillor Taylor, has Corey
yeah, I was
you?
going to say about Wolverhampton, just because the sort of demographic profile sort of matched up, being outside a big city as well, industrial town. Another one was, I think, when I went on the conference, was Preston. I think they've got quite a few sort of small independent venues that sort of seem to be thriving. So there'll be another one. I've got a collection of business cards that I could probably delve into and maybe start reaching out. I know, obviously, the Mayor of London, they had a nighttime economy czar, but they'll have a nighttime economy strategy as well. I think I did have a quick chat with them about potentially sort of seeing if there's anything we could learn, so I could reach out to them as well. But yeah, more than happy to take on other advice as well, anywhere else people think might be useful.
Councillor Taylor, very helpful. No? So, going forward then, we await to get details about the next meeting and the work that Corey and his team are going to do to kick that off early in the new year. It's going to be quite a lot of work for us to do, but I know we're up for the challenge, and I know that we will do very well. We've got excellent councillors here who are going to really contribute with the officers to make this work. So thank you, members, for coming this evening. Oh, Councillor Taylor, yep, thank you.
Just very briefly, I think there was a process where I couldn't be added onto the mailing list before this because I'm not a member of Scrutiny, but going forward, is it right if I'm included in all the mail-in emails that go around about this, so I'm aware of them?
Happy to include you, Councillor Taylor.